The dragon using its state media to drum up a shrill war cry. The latest attack is directly aimed at Prime Minister Modi. Chinese state-owned media firing the communal card to attack India this time. The dragon warning that Hindu nationalism may push India into war with China. Clearly, India's tough talk and firm stance has left the dragon rattled. Chinese media admitting as much, whining that the new Modi regime is tougher on them.
ये भूटान की भूमि है, भारत की सीमा के नजदीक है और भूटान और भारत का एक सिक्योरिटी में प्रोटेक्शन देने का एक अरेंजमेंट भी है और इसलिए भूटान ने ही स्वयं स्पष्ट कर दिया कि यह हमारी जमीन है और जो प्रेजेंट स्टेटस को है हमारी जमीन का, चाइना उसको ऑल्टर करने की कोशिश कर रहा है। तो मुझे लगता है कि इसके बाद विषय एकदम स्पष्ट हो गया है।
But the dragon won't back off. State-owned newspaper The Global Times has attacked Prime Minister Modi and Hindu nationalism, warning of a war.
Even as the standoff at Doklam now enters its second month, the very shrill rhetoric from China continues. Possibly one of the hardest statements till date from a Chinese diplomat who was once in India and now retired, Liu Youfa, saying to state broadcaster in China that India's troops had only three options. Either they withdraw, or they would be captured, or they maybe would get killed. Very strong words from China, even as the Chinese Foreign Ministry on Thursday reiterated its stand that there was no room for diplomatic solutions unless India immediately withdraws its troops.
Chinese media continues its war rhetoric. India needs more than tough words and a firm resolve to win this mind game. With Geeta Mohan and Gaurav Sawant in Delhi and Anand Krishnan in Beijing, Bureau Report, India Today.
And we join in this debate by RSS ideologue Rakesh Sinha, strategic affairs analyst Sushant Sari, defense analyst Brigadier V. Mahalingam joins us from the studio, BJP spokesperson Syed Zafar Islam, author and columnist from Beijing, China, Aina Tangen, and Professor School of International Studies, JNU, Kamal Chinoy Mitra joins me here from the studio. I want to come to you, Mr. Tangen, first. I'm not going to mince my words, as we said initially in this program. The very headline of this article in the Global Times is Hindu nationalism risks pushing India into war with China. Why is the Chinese media playing these war games, this war rhetoric and warmongering actually?
Well, it's not a perspective. From China's perspective, troops entered its territory on the 16th of June and still remain there. They view this as basically an incursion. So they feel very strongly. They were surprised that India's troops did not withdraw, and they made it a precondition. Unfortunately, this has hardened both sides. So when you put in this very inflammatory headline about this former diplomat who said it, who I know, I think you're perhaps putting it on the wrong foot. As he said in the very beginning of his quote, according to his understanding of international law. I think his statement represents his opinion.
But it does not represent the opinion of the Chinese government.
That's okay. He's talking just about himself. But my question to you is that the media over a period of time there has actually started this warmongering, if you understand. This Hindu nationalism and this Hindu nationalism inspired government is actually warmongering or going to push India, China into a war. Why do you have to get into the internal politics of this country to try and pin things down? That's my basic question. I'm asking you a question on how the media is writing the narrative there, sir.
Well, in similar ways to the way that the narrative is being written by the media in India. For instance, there has been General Bipin who said that prepare for a 2.5-year war. This is very early on. Also, there have been many
comments. That's precisely the point. You're talking about the general of the army here. And we are questioning you on the media, sir. That's precisely the point.
Yes, and on the media side,
if a word comes, it comes from those in authority.
The media, but Ita, remember, when somebody from the Indian side says China should be prepared for a 2.5-year war, and he's a general representing his country, they take it as warmongering. I know that might sound strange. Yeah. And when the media says that this has all been trumped up in essence, to try to push nationalism on Xi's side as he's approaching the next party leadership conference. So, yes, both sides need to start ratcheting down. There's far too much emotion.
No, but these aren't signs of...
You have a very simple situation.
These aren't signs of actually escalating everything down or pulling things down. Mr. Mahalingam, Brigadier.
I mean, you have put across your point. Let me bring out. First, as far as this particular issue that is happening in Doklam is concerned, it has got nothing to do with religion, India. And let me tell you that as far as China is concerned, it is allergic to religions as also to minorities, as you can very clearly see, both in Tibet as well as in Xinjiang. This is the Chinese mindset with religion, not understanding that people have their own sentiments and their own issues together. Second point which I would like to bring out, the article totally misses the point. It is not the Hindu nationalism which has won this problem. Today, the entire country is united, irrespective of the places from where they come, irrespective of their religions. The people are together and they know what China did to India in 1962. Therefore, as far as the issue is concerned, the issue is basically because China unilaterally tried to change the status quo of tri-junction. It is precisely because of that the situation arose, and it is that which the people of India, which has got nothing to do with any religion or any state or any minority, they oppose this move and they are extremely angry with China for what they are doing.
Before I go to Syed Zafar Islam, I want to come to you, Rakesh Sinha. What sense is this trying to, what sense does this actually make Hindu nationalism, and that is why pushing India to war? What exactly does China have on its mind, and what is it pushing through its media?
We understand the art of war of China. They are the warmongers. They create confusion. They want to intervene in India's domestic affairs, but I am going to respond on other matter. There is almost 80,000 people are killed every year in China. Can we please have an interface between the
Chinese guests we have and the guests we have from India? Please, can we do that? Yeah. Please, sir, go ahead.
80,000 dissidents are killed in China every year. This is the average killing of the... And more than 15,000 Muslim clerics were killed by Chinese last year. 15,000 Muslim clerics. Those who used to claim I am cleric, those who wanted to preach Islam, those who want to revive Islam in China. And about the Tibet, we are going to raise the Tibet. This is the golden opportunity for India. This time China would not face the defeat at the border, but the disintegration. You know, the democratic forces in China are more aggressive now. They are looking for opportunity for a war at the border, and China will face disintegration. I am warning China. If you want to be a united China, keep off from India. If you want war, you will face disintegration. And moreover, at the international plane, can
Mr.
China
Changan, let
name
Mr.
one
Changan respond to that, sir.
Not a single country is with China. China is the most incredible country in the world. It is imperialistic in nature, medieval in nature. So China will get the proper response this time by India, the Hindu, what they call Hindu nationalist forces.
Mr. Changan.
These kind of extreme emotional outbursts are not going to help long-term game between India and China. China has proposed on the occasions that between these two civilization powers be better, that they join hands,
not only in their own countries, but throughout the area in the region. Unfortunately, that has not happened as of yet. You know, Donald Trump, America, has seen India as a useful doorstop in preventing China from expanding. I think these are the issues that we should be taking a look at. What is the future of India? How can it work with its neighbors to create a more stable and mutually beneficial society, not only in India, but for everywhere around it?
Okay, Mr. Sinha, please respond quickly before I go to Sushant Sareen, because he says emotional outbursts won't help. I'm coming to you, Professor, after that. Yeah.
No, it is not emotional outburst. I'm telling them. Respectable Dalai Lama reached Arunachal Pradesh. This is unacceptable to China. Our warship also reached claim in South Sea. China, it is not China's monopoly. China is violating all the international tribunals verdicts. It is making the artificial island. We can't accept this thing. Your imperialism cannot be accepted. And the Prime Minister of India, after becoming Narendra Modi, after becoming the Prime Minister, he visited Mongolia, he visited Vietnam, he visited China. He had given a message to you. You are the China is a country which tried to invade Vietnam. You don't have a single friend all over the world. Out of almost 200 countries, China does not have one country who China can claim as a friend. India has a lot of friends.
Professor Mitra, you want to respond to that?
Different narrative in the world.
Professor Mitra, you want to respond to that?
First, about the Chinese gentleman, that many of us have been often in China. In fact, in 2000, when they had the big seminar on socialism, I was there. Now, the problem is basically something which is political that we have to work out, because the borders that India put forward from 1959 onwards, China did not accept. And then we know what happened. Now, there is a point, you have a very close relationship with Russia, so do we. So, and as far as terms go like Hindu nationalism, you would accept the point that the largest nationality in China by far is the Hans. Now, we are not making that claim for our own people, that because the largest number of a religion is Hindu, therefore there's a Hindu nationalism. When it comes to nationalism, it is above religion. It was there in wars we've had in the north, it was there in wars we had in the west and the east. But it is important, as you recommend, that there should be talks and mutual solutions. But for that, sir, both sides have to cooperate. And whether it's Doklam, earlier what happened in Arunachal Pradesh and so forth, we must cooperate, because we should not be used by countries like the United States and others, and we should build our traditional strengths, and that is both good for you and India.
Absolutely.
But once the rhetoric ratchets up, then that takes over reasoned discussion.
Absolutely. That's the big point that we're trying to make, and I want to get you, Mr. Sushant Sareen, in, because this entire narrative that is being written through the media, that's actually being this war rhetoric and this talk about now coming down to Hindu nationalism. And there's one particular sentence which I want to really point out, in which they say the Modi government can do nothing if religious nationalism becomes extreme, as shown in its failure to curb violent incidents against Muslims since he came to power in 2014. What does this have to do with the Doklam standoff? Mr. Sareen.
I think it's probably some Pakistani who's writing for the Chinese newspaper, or Chinese who strongly influenced by Pakistan. Yes. And see, frankly speaking, I think it's a no-brainer that both India and China have a lot more to gain from cooperating with each other and having peace and tranquility on their borders than getting into needless fights. But the way the Chinese are behaving, or rather I should say misbehaving, and Anjana, one thing I think you should be extremely careful about. You know, this equivalence which we draw between the Indian media and the Chinese media, I think it's completely conflating issues, because the Chinese media is a parrot. It mouths what is the dictation which is given to them.
Absolutely.
In the case of the Indian media, for example, I don't agree with my friend Rakesh Sinha with whatever he has said in this program. Nobody is going to instruct me, or nobody is going to put me in jail because I disagree with Rakesh Sinha. And many people would, probably not agree with Rakesh Sinha, the kind of strident position he has taken. I don't know whether anybody in China can actually oppose the kind of strident noises which we are reading in the Chinese newspapers. Now, just as the Chinese are talking about India getting close to America, why do they forget for almost 30 years, they were literally like hanger-on of Americas. They were developing a very close relationship with the Americans. At that point of time, they forgot about the rest of the world. Yes. Now, today, if we want to benefit from a close relationship with America, and we also want to benefit from a close relationship with China, but look at the way the Chinese have behaved with us. Let's talk about the NSG. What is the Chinese problem with India entering NSG? They will not let us enter because they want their lapdog Pakistan to come in. So they equate us with Pakistan. We don't want to be equated with Pakistan. Why can't the Chinese have a relationship with us, which is a bilateral level relationship?
Absolutely. Mr.
Why do they always get somebody to snap at our heels?
Yeah, Mr. Rana, please respond to that, sir. What is bothering China so much? This Modi-Trump thing, what is it? Why do you have to keep taking this Pakistan route all the time? And as he said, these words, I mean, failure to curb violent incidents against Muslims, where does that figure in?
No, and Anjana, if I might just put another question to our Chinese guest.
Please go ahead, sir.
You know, this business about Hindu nationalism, there is Han nationalism, and we have seen that over the last decade or more, Han nationalism or Chinese nationalism has become a major menace around the world. Yeah. And then about the treatment of Muslims, I think somebody mentioned how the Chinese, for example, does anybody in India prevent a Muslim from using Muhammad in his name? But they prevent it in China. Does anybody prevent Muslims in India from keeping a roza or observing the, all their other religious observations? Nobody prevents that. It is prevented in China. Is any Muslim prevented from keeping a beard? No, it isn't.
Mr. Reinhardt, please respond to this, sir.
Should we now push back at them on this?
Absolutely. Mr. Reinhardt, please respond, sir.
Oh, to which part? For China, first off, I don't represent the Chinese government. I'm a commentator. I'm from the U.S. So do not impute what I say as what the Chinese government says. In terms of how China views India, when they see constant stories about people being killed or beaten up because they were transporting or supposedly going to kill cows, and this is traced back, or at least the position is being espoused by Hindu nationalists, this becomes something they don't understand. So, of course, they believe that nationalism there is somehow behind all of these issues. Now, to be fair, I agree with you. Chinese nationalism has been on the rise. You've seen it. They feel that they are kind of surrounded by the U.S. There are over 200 bases on surrounding China. There's a feeling that the U.S. is trying to use India and other places, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, and all their possessions in the other areas of the South Pacific to try to interfere with China's trade. China exists as a low resource country. They rank around 100 out of the total countries. Yes. In terms of resources per person. So they need to have resources coming in order to improve and sell them. This is necessary to their trade. So they see this is very important, which is why they put together the Belt and Road Initiative.
Okay. Mr. Sareen wants to respond to that quickly, sir, because I want to go to Syed Zafar Islam. Quickly, sir.
See, just a simple point. You know, there is nothing one can do about the manufactured insecurities, which then give rise to a kind of aggression from the Chinese side. In the last 30 or 40 years, who has stopped China's trade? Who has interdicted China's energy supplies? Nobody. Everybody has an interest that if China grows, nobody has an interest if China does not grow. For example, India has benefited from China's growth, and India would like to have a closer relationship with the Chinese. Yes. But if that means that we are going to become some kind of supplicants before China, that's not on offer. So you can't manufacture these insecurities of yours, and this is exactly what the Pakis also do. We can't allow this. Nothing has happened to make the Chinese so insecure, and for them to use that as an excuse to show the kind of aggression they have done on South China Sea or with India or with other countries, including Japan, I don't think it's going to wash down anybody's neck.
Yeah, Syed Zafar Islam, Modi took advantage of Hindu nationalism, not being able to curb violence against Muslims. Now, these are very direct attacks. How does your government plan to take this or ignore it?
First of all, I think the language they are speaking is the language what the pseudo-secular speaks in India. I think they have picked up someone's mind out of India, and that's what they are speaking. It has no merit, and if you see, if you compare, as rightly pointed out by the Honorable Finance Minister and Defense Minister today in the Rajya Sabha, that the minorities are safe here. There is absolutely no intrusion as far as the minorities affairs is concerned. They feel secure, they feel comfortable, and there is absolutely no reason to complain. Having said that, there are incidents, but that incident is not only primarily targeted to minorities, but targeted by the antisocial elements against individuals who are seen to be to be violating the law of the land, and that's when those attacks are there. But the authorities, the administration are taking strictest possible action.
We don't need to explain this to the Chinese.
And who are
we don't need to explain this to the Chinese. This is our internal politics and has nothing to do with the Doklam standoff. We have to slip into a very short break. We'll come back. Brigadier Mahalingam also wants to say something, but the message is very clear. The Chinese media is actually war-mongering, and with this kind of rhetoric about Hindu nationalism, peace doesn't stand a chance. If we need to take this forward, we need to understand that these are very soft and grounds that are not necessarily to be tread upon. Brigadier Mahalingam, how should the army see this kind of war rhetoric in the media from China?
This has got nothing to do with India. It is a diversion. The Chinese are trying to grab territory. This is precisely what they did in Philippines, or rather in South China Sea. They got into the Palwan sort of island in what you call Paracel Islands, and they said that they are just putting up a tent for the fishermen to come and stay. And ultimately today they have the missile shelters, they have a communication setup, they have a radar setup. It is totally grabbing territory.
Professor, isn't this true? They have been aggressive, and they want to say that India is always wary of what we are doing. But they have been aggressive.
No, you see, there is a double action. One is what Brigadier said about Doklam and all that. But they're also very annoyed that we are not supporting them in the South China Seas. And we are doing joint prospecting with Vietnam, who they've had a war with. So it is, the Chinese policy is not single-minded. They are trying everywhere where they can increase their power and push the other powers into a corner.
Mr. Sinha, 20-second quick final response to that, sir.
The days of writing essay on India-China relationship is over. The days of writing essay on that how much we can gain, how much China can gain by cooperation is over. Now the days are ahead when we have to rewrite the relationship between India and China. That rewriting.
Okay, we ended with that stern message. We end to the point with that stern message. Thank you, gentlemen, and especially you, Mr. Airang, for joining us from Beijing. Thank you. Keep watching India Today.